When reading feels too hard, too confusing, or too exhausting, kids are going to avoid it.
Why would any kid in 2024 care about school? It's so obvious why middle school and high school kids are falling for the narrative that school is for fools and college is a scam.
Yeah, take that in. That's how much they don't read. This man did not know that the answer key he was looking at was the answer key for the worksheet that we worked on last class. He thought it was the answer key for the quiz we was just now taking. Yeah, we are cooked.
Why students don't care about reading anymore. Lately, I've been hearing this a lot from teachers. Kids don't care anymore about reading, about school, about anything academic. And if you're in the classroom, it definitely feels that way. But I don't think it's as simple as they don't care. So in this video, I'm going to show a few clips and give you my take as a teacher. Before we start, if you want your comment featured in the next video, leave one below. And if you've seen this in your classroom too, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Let's look at some of the previous videos' comments. All Things Biblical says, balanced literacy equals balanced idiocy. Her Majesty says, my husband and I laughed out loud when the light bulb came on for that teacher. Phonics, what a novel idea. Who is teaching these teachers? We Learn English says, too much technology. I tend to take it back to basics with my lessons. Reading is a great way to learn any language, and it's sad to see that it's being thrown under the carpet. Very true. Henrique says, I'm a teacher in the Brazilian public education sector. I can say that we have similar problems here. Many students can't read a simple text or even pay attention in the class because they are addicted to shorts and reels.
When a child refuses to read, it's not attitude, it's a signal. Parents often feel stuck here and they're told or they believe that their child is lazy, unmotivated, or just doesn't like reading. It's just not their thing. But in my experience, refusal is almost always a form of communication. When reading feels too hard, too confusing, or too exhausting, kids are going to avoid it. Adults do this too. If you don't enjoy something, you probably aren't going to follow through with it. And you're an adult with an adult brain. They might stall, melt down, start to act silly, ants in their pants. They say that they hate reading. You get into a fight. They forget how to read. They stare at the ceiling. None of these are forms of manipulation, and it's not about you. These are forms of self-protection. Avoidance is often the brain's way of saying, hey, this task is beyond my current ability, and I can't do this. When the missing skill is identified and then taught, something shifts. And kids who once refused to read, all of a sudden, they're engaged. They try.
Maybe it's just because I'm from another generation, but I think we've got to be harder on kids. You know, we're raising these kids to be soft because we want to protect them. But yes, if they don't have those skills, we should push them to learn it. Not to say, oh, it's because it's too difficult for them. Let's help them.
They build stamina, they get faster, and probably most importantly, they gain confidence. Not because they changed. We did not change their behavior or even address their behavior in most of these instances. We made reading as a task and as a skill manageable. If reading time feels like a constant battle in your home, it's not because your child is incapable of reading, and it's not because they're dumb. It's because they don't have the skill set taught for them for the level that they are trying to read at currently.
This is really common. Students will do almost anything to avoid reading. They guess, they copy, they wait for someone else to answer. From the outside, it looks like they're just not trying. But a lot of the time, reading is just hard for them. And when something feels difficult and public, students tend to avoid it.
My son hates reading. Reading's boring, is what I tell him. I want to read. I can never take in the words. I think I'm dyslexic, but I'm scared to get tested in case I'm not.
Even though I think it's important to challenge our students, some might not have the necessary skills. So it's funny, but pretty accurate. Even adults avoid situations where they might struggle. Now, put a kid in that position, in front of their peers. They don't want to be the one that gets stuck on a simple sentence, so they deflect. Sometimes that looks like joking. Sometimes it looks like they don't care.
Proof that kids don't read. I gave out a test today. Somebody saw this key. They saw this key right here that says solving equations by factoring. Student proceeds to, 1, try their best to copy down all the answers on this answer key on their forearm. And then, as I give them the quiz, they look at me and they're confused. They're like, but the answer's not here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And it was like, oh, I just saw the answer key. I don't even know why they told me they saw the answer key. Like, that's not cheating. But they said, yo, the answer key problems are not the same as the quiz problems. Because I said, my boy, that was the answer key for the work that we did last class. Yeah, take that in. That's how much they don't read. This man did not know that the answer key he was looking at was the answer key for the worksheet that we worked on last class. He thought it was the answer key for the quiz we was just now taking. Yeah, we are cooked.
This clip is a good example of how this shows up in other subjects. Students copy the answer key without even reading what they were supposed to do. At that point, it's not really about effort. It's about understanding the instructions in the first place. If reading is weak, everything else becomes harder. Let's take a look at the comments. I put the answers on the board and they still failed. That's when I knew. To prove a point about how they don't read things on the board, midway through a class I gave a quiz. The answers to every question was on the board in an obvious manner. It literally said the answers are. 2 kids noticed. What'd he get on the test though? That's a good one.
Why would any kid in 2024 care about school? It's so obvious why middle school and high school kids are falling for the narrative that school is for fools and college is a scam. And it's not because school is actually for fools and college is a scam. With kids as tuned in as they are to the world around them now, what kid would want to trust the public school system? Our kids may be young, but they're not dumb. They have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a brain, and they can see what's going on and can see that the American government is taking steps to eliminate public school and make it harder for them to go to college. They're seeing AI and automation taking over jobs. They hear adults all around them talking about how nobody under the age of 50 is ever going to be able to afford to buy their own home. Hell, the adults around them are talking about how this earth isn't even going to be inhabitable by the time they reach retirement age. So they're like, why the fuck even try? And believe me, I've spent years on this app.
I love Teresa, but no need to swear. I feel in TV shows they swear unnecessarily. I was watching the new One Piece on Netflix, and for no reason the characters swear. I mean, kids are watching this. Why do you need to put it in there? Same with Teresa. I think it's unnecessary. I don't know many adults talking about the world ending. I feel like everybody's been told this lie, like the world's going to end, so that's why we shouldn't have kids, and everything's just getting worse. It's changing.
Arguing with people about how we shouldn't be pushing that narrative onto our young people because it's dangerous and it kills any motivation to do any good in this world. But honestly, they don't need that messaging pushed onto them. They see it. I feel like in conversations about public school, and I'm guilty of this myself, we have spent so much time talking about how to curb discipline issues, how to deal with classroom management, how to deal with new technology in the classroom, how to deal with AI in the classroom and in curriculum. But as someone who has hosted and moderated conversations about almost every one of these topics, all of it rings hollow now. All of it seems like just a massive waste of time to talk about and debate. What's the point of worrying about that stuff when Republicans are trying to put Bibles back in classrooms and Donald Trump is trying to get rid of public school altogether? None of that other matters anymore. And if you're a teacher in the classroom that is working with children every day,
politics in the classroom, never good, guys. No need to swear. I heard someone saying this thing about how many times a day do you think about him? And I bet you she's going to say, all the time. How much does he think about you?
You might not feel the same way about that. And I understand. I totally get it. All I'm saying is I think I have a little bit more sympathy now for the kids who go to school and just don't see the freaking point. Why are we doing all this? Why are you taking up my cell phone whenever the world is crumbling around us? Why are we worried about learning trigonometry when nobody wants us to go to college anyway, unless we're rich and can pay for it out of our own pocket? What's the point of getting a high school diploma and a college degree if I'm never going to be able to afford to buy my own house? I feel that. I totally get it. I understand. Here's my caveat. Rich white kids aren't being told that school is for fools and college is a scam. Even though college educated people right now are having just as hard of a time buying groceries and paying the bills, knowledge is still power. And the people that are in power understand that if you are educated, you are more powerful. And as we see our kids becoming wary of education, public school, universities, the entire process, we need to hound on them the importance of receiving an education for education's sake. Receiving an education is not just about how much money you're going to earn in the future. It has
Education, extremely important. No, I think kids want to be educated. It's just we've got to be careful about what we're being educated and who's doing the education.
its own intrinsic value, and that is what we have to cling on to. Because the people in power, the elites, the people that don't want our children to be educated, want us to forget that. They want us to forget that Gen X and millennial people that are now parents grew up in a world where Sesame Street and Reading Rainbow and PBS and all of our teachers at school were telling us that knowledge is power, reading is good, school is good. Don't let the cynics in Washington and the state capitol convince you that your child doesn't need to graduate high school and doesn't need to go on and get a higher degree or certification. Because remember, they will send their child to a private school until the 12th grade, and then they will send their child to university. There is no other alternative for rich people in this country. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and if they think it's that important, then you should too.
There's truth in what Teresa's saying, but I'd phrase it slightly differently. Students tend to care about things they feel capable of doing. If school feels confusing or overwhelming, they check out. And reading is often at the center of that. If they can't access the material, it's hard to stay engaged. Let's take a look at the comments. Gen Z, I've accepted I'm never going to have children or own a house. What's the point? Oh, so sad. If you're educated, you are powerful. Nice. I've always grown up hearing, oh, we won't be here in 30 years, over and over again. And now 20 years later, it seems that's reality, which shouldn't be happening at all. This, our home, our only home.
There is nothing I hate more than someone proudly proclaiming that they hate reading. I haven't read a book since elementary school. I can tell. Is reading boring, or have you just not found the right book? I promise there's a book out there you'll like, please. You don't have to read, but don't go around bragging about it. That's odd. Even if it's nonfiction. I hate nonfiction.
I like nonfiction. Most of the books I read are nonfiction. Occasionally, I would read some fiction.
If I'm reading a nonfiction book, it's a book on how to write fiction. That's the extent of my nonfiction reading. Listen, as long as you read, it could be The Very Hungry Caterpillar. I will be proud. Please? I hate reading. Oh, so you hate the greatest pastime ever made? You hate joy and fun and whimsy and experiencing the full range of emotions that humans have to offer in a single sitting? How could you hate that? That's like hating breathing. Why are we alive if not to read? I don't understand. The other day my mother told me, there's more to life than books. What are you talking about? That doesn't even make sense. She said, I fall asleep whenever I try to read a book. I lose sleep over books. What books are you reading? The dictionary? I don't understand. It doesn't even have to be a good book. It could be Twilight. You know? I don't even want to hear any excuses about attention span. If I can do it, diagnosed ADHD, I just don't have the attention span. You have to train it. Do you realize this? The reason you have no attention span is because you're scrolling on TikTok every time you have free time. It's like a muscle, okay? You have to work it out.
I understand the frustration here, but in schools, a lot of students don't choose to dislike reading. They fall behind gradually. And once reading becomes difficult, it also becomes tiring, frustrating, and a bit embarrassing. So instead of improving, they start avoiding it altogether. Let's look at some of the comments. Alex says, are you calling Twilight a bad book? M as in Magic Star says, in terms of books, all you have is options. You can read books from entirely different cultures and time periods. There's the perfect piece of literature out there for anyone who wants it, because there are authors of all backgrounds that want to tell all kinds of stories. Gravity Falls says, I'm dyslexic, I read Percy Jackson. So yeah, sometimes it looks like students don't care, but in a lot of cases, it's more like they're avoiding something that feels too difficult. And over time, that starts looking like apathy. I'm curious what you're seeing. Do your students avoid reading, or do they genuinely not care? Leave a comment. I read a lot of them. And if this is something you're dealing with too, feel free to like and subscribe.